We're into the second part of this program. Thanks for staying with us. And if you just joined us, you're watching World Insight. Now, starting last week, Mongolia has been churning in the aftermath of its parliamentary elections. Disappointment and charges of fraud have voters rioting in the streets, leading the government to declare a state of emergency. Today, though, Mongolia's political problems are still far from resolved as the country tries to end the post-election gridlock.
Even before the official results of the parliamentary polls were in, a fight was brewing. After preliminary results indicated a win for the Mongolian People's Revolutionary Party, or MPRP, supporters of the opposition Democratic Party and other parties took to the streets, charging voter fraud. In the capital, Ulaanbaatar, the country's only urban hub, the protests soon turned into riots. 5 people were killed, some 300 others were injured, and the MPRP's headquarters was set on fire.
For the first time in 18 years of, more than now, 18 years of democratic elections in this country, that such a major act of, horrendous act of vandalism has ever occurred, and I definitely hope that this would be the last time. Enough was destructed, enough lessons were learned, and I hope we'll move on.
On July the 2nd, President Nambaryn Angbayar declared a 4-day state of emergency. Now life in Ulaanbaatar seems to have returned to normal. People gather around Supaktar Square to enjoy the summer sunshine. A couple takes their wedding photos amid a festive atmosphere that belies the political stalemate. The only reminder of the unrest seems to be the headquarters of the ruling MPRP. But a solution to the political stalemate is widely believed unlikely in the foreseeable future.
Technically speaking, the delay of the release of the election results may be the direct reason for the protest. Mongolia used a new election system this time, which benefited the big parties like the MPRP. Voters have to choose more than one candidate in one ballot, which also greatly delayed the vote counting process. The legitimacy of the election became an open target then. But of course, the political and social background of the riots goes much deeper than that. Poverty and inequality in Mongolia has become increasingly serious. People aren't satisfied with the current life and don't want foreign investors involved in mining exploration. So this is a very complicated problem, and there are still many challenges facing the government.
And foremost among those challenges are natural resources and poverty. The election focused in part on how to share the country's mineral wealth and curb fast-rising inflation. More than 1 million people in Ulaanbaatar live in Ger districts, temporary dwellings of homes and round-felt tents. Many come from herding families who've left their rural homes in search of a better life. But most of them haven't found it.
Prices are rising every day, and sometimes 2 people's salary are not enough.
Mongolia has fewer than 3 million people. Around a third of them still maintain the traditional nomadic lifestyle, moving 3 or 4 times a year, and they make very little money. The economic struggle has been going on for some time. Last year, the inflation rate reached 15% and is now about 17%. GDP is only about $3.9 billion, and GDP per capita is about $1,300. Yet Mongolians have the key to lifting the country out of poverty right beneath their feet. Sandwiched between Russia and China, the landlocked Central Asian state is home to vast untapped reserves of copper, coal, uranium, and gold. But many in the country worry that Mongolia may not be able to reap the benefits of its natural wealth. Foreign involvement is a hotly debated subject.
If possible, there shouldn't be foreign involvement. It's not necessary. Mongolia is a country rich in resources and should be developed and invested in by Mongolia.
But outside influence has already dug deep into the economy and politics.
Economically and politically, Mongolia is a small country, but it has a large territory and abundant resources. Furthermore, located between China and Russia, its geographic position is very important. So that's why many countries see Mongolia as a very important partner. And in Mongolia's view, it tries to avoid being too dependent on one single power, and it has built a multi-pillar foreign policy, which means not only developing good relations with two big neighbors, China and Russia, but also with the third neighbor countries like the United States and Japan.
Alfayar visited Russia in December 2006, shortly after being elected. On the agenda was uranium cooperation. Mongolia might build a nuclear station with Russian help. And meanwhile, the U.S. has praised Mongolia as a model of democratic transition, with an eye to boosting ties and strengthening military and anti-terrorism cooperation.
Recently, the ruling MPRP has shown great interest in developing relations with Russia, which apparently the U.S. is not happy with. There are calls for the U.S. government to take back the $290 million Millennium Challenge Foundation it gives Mongolia to punish it. The U.S. wants Mongolia to become a pro-West country that could balance the influence of Russia and China in the region. It wants to have a NATO in Asia. Meanwhile, Russia wants to retain its traditional influence in the country and in the region. So the interests of the different parties give Mongolia many potential problems.
For a small country, advantages like strategic location and rich resources can be something of a curse. Mongolia needs a strong government that can represent the interests of its people. Otherwise, it could be the victim of power politics in the international arena.
Well, here's something to think about. Mongolia's stability is not important just for the country, but it's also very, very important for the region. It can't afford another potential crisis. We're going to keep an eye on this developing situation, but in the meantime, we're going to go to a third and final break. After that, we'll return to see some fantastic coral reefs, so get ready to jump into the water with us. You're watching World Insight. We'll be back after this.